Okay, were you here yesterday when I was at the mic?
I was not here.
Okay, at risk of, and for those who were here, I went into details with regards to the Ukrainians interfering in the 2016 election. I referenced Chali, Avakov, Chalupa working with the Ukrainian embassy, the Black Ledger that was used to take down a Trump campaign official, origins of the Steele dossier. And I also spoke about the issue with regards to Burisma, which is a corrupt Ukrainian gas company run by a corrupt Ukrainian oligarch, hiring the son of the vice president with no energy experience and no Ukraine experience for at least $50,000 a month solely because he was Vice President Biden's son. And now Vice President Biden happened to be the most conflicted person in the entire Obama administration to be running point for Ukraine because of Hunter's role. And I don't believe that Burisma, the Bidens, Zolchevsky should get a free pass, be immune from scrutiny just because Joe Biden is running for president. If it's not illegal, then it should be. So the president has a duty, whether it's President Trump or it would have been any other president in his place, to be concerned about corruption. It's a law passed with the Ukrainian Security Assistance Act in 2014 inside the NDAA. He actually can't provide aid to Ukraine unless at that moment he is confident that they are doing what they need to be doing to fight corruption. So as far as that and your question, if Senator Kennedy said what you said he mentioned when he was just here before us, he's absolutely right.
And you know who else was concerned about corruption was the Obama administration. If you remember Ambassador Yovanovitch's testimony in the Open House Intelligence Committee, as she was being prepared to appear before the Senate, the Obama administration raised the issue of Hunter Biden sitting on the board of Burisma as a potential conflict of interest and a potential example of corruption.
A breaking news report by ABC News says that Trump, in a recorded conversation, said of Ambassador Yovanovitch, "Take her out." Do you have any reaction to that reporting? Is this how a U.S. president should be talking about a U.S. ambassador, if that's the case?
My guess is we're probably not surprised that the guy who had a TV show where he talked about firing people is willing to recall the ambassador. I also point out that if this was all part of some scheme, as the Democrats allege, why would they replace Ambassador Yovanovitch with Ambassador Taylor? Ambassador Taylor was their star witness. He was their first witness, the guy that called for the very first public hearing. So look, the President of the United States can put in place the people he thinks who are best there who would do the best job implementing the policies that he was elected to implement. I think that's what he's doing.
Jay Sekulow said that Democrats opened the door.
One at a time, go ahead.
Yes, Jay Sekulow said that Democrats opened the door to scrutiny of Hunter and Joe Biden by arguing there wasn't corruption in Ukraine. Do you think that it will be a bigger focus now of the defense because of that?
The defense has got, we've said this yesterday, we said it all along, they got all the facts on the president's side, those four fundamental facts that will not change, have not changed, will never change. They got a strong constitutional argument. We're talking about abuse of power, obstruction of Congress. Mr. Turley testified to that when in the open hearing. And of course, the lack of due process. They got a process argument that is strong. So they're going to argue all those. Seems to me, we've said, if they go down this witness road, I don't think they should, because I think the case is open and shut for the president. But if they do, they got to go all the way down this road, and we would want to hear from the whistleblower and Hunter Biden as well. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I wanted to clarify what you were saying about obstruction of Congress being separation of powers. Are you saying there's no such thing as obstruction of Congress? That no president can obstruct Congress?
No, I'm just saying that the case that the Democrats are making is ridiculous, and I thought Mr. Ratcliffe's comment was appropriate. In fact, Professor Turley, who indicated he voted for Clinton, made that same argument in the judiciary hearing. How if anyone's abusing any power here, it's the Congress, and how they think about this. The first deposition of Ambassador Volker is on October 3rd. Just 30-some days is all they took for the 17 witnesses that were deposed. A little over 30 days. That was their entire thing. And now they say, well, they want changes in process. They did this all in 30-some days over there.
What changed, Congressman? What changed between the moment the aid was held up and when Trump decided it was okay to release the aid? Was he convinced that there was no
Four key meetings with senior U.S. officials and President Zelensky. The day after, President Zelensky meets with Volker, Sondland, Taylor, 3 ambassadors. Never comes up linking aid to an investigation. Then you got the August 27th when Ambassador, the head of the NSC, John Bolton, meets with President Zelensky. Then you got the Vice President Pence meeting on September 2nd. And then most importantly, you got Senators Johnson and Murphy who meet with President Zelensky on September 5th. And these senior U.S. officials all become convinced that this guy's the real deal. He's legit. He's a real reformer like he campaigned on. They convey that to the president. And then there are 2 key phone calls that happen. between Senator Johnson and President Trump and Senator Portman on September 11th, the day the aid is released, that he has with President. That's what changed it.
And I think one other thing that I want to add to that, one other thing that actually happened is that first week in September, OMB actually provides a report on the assistance from the European allies in terms of their support to Ukraine. And so that report is released, along with what Congressman Jordan was talking about, personal advocacy from a number of senators who have firsthand knowledge of their conversations with the President of the United States, and then the aid's released.
And actually,
Jordan, I'm sorry, I just
one
want
other,
to clarify.
Let me finish.
Sure.
So also to that point about the September 1st meeting, I would refer you to Ambassador Taylor's transcript from his closed-door deposition, because he said that Vice President Pence went to Warsaw to meet with President Zelensky to talk about 2 points. And it was specifically with regards to fighting corruption in Ukraine. Ambassador Taylor, who was a Democrat's star witness, said that that was perfectly 100% consistent with U.S. law and U.S. policy when Vice President Pence went to Warsaw, specifically the direction of the president, to ask that question just days before you saw the aid release.
Congressman, looking ahead to tomorrow, what is the crux of the argument going to focus on, and what's the mood of the defense team heading into the first opening argument?
Very confident because the facts are on the president. Very confident because all the facts, as we've said numerous times, are on the president's side. They can make a constitutional argument. They can make the facts argument. They can make the lack of due process that the president didn't have when the House did the investigation. I'll catch you. We're gonna go.
I just wanted to clarify something. I just want to clarify the question because I think you may have misunderstood it. I wasn't asking about what any particular person may have alleged. I was asking about a recording that, according to this report by a major news network, seemed to say that seems to record Trump saying that he wanted to, quote, take her out about Ambassador Yovanovitch. And my question was, is that if that's what the recording says, is
my
that
understanding, my understanding that this was a year ago, a year and a half ago, this was like in 2018, and the president was wanting to recall Ambassador Yovanovitch, which he subsequently did a year later, which he's, totally allowed to do.
Does that recording mean the Senate should hear from Lev Parnas?
How much focus do you feel on
Hi, everybody.
Senator Schiff,
So, go ahead.
Senator seemed to suggest last night that some of the defense of Trump is disingenuous, and maybe down in your hearts you know that there's some wrongdoing here. What's your sort of response to this speech?
Well, I think he's done a horrible job trying to present a case. It's all. I've heard the same testimony time and time again. We saw that protester yell something bad about Chuck Schumer. I'm thinking about possibly doing the same thing, so Sergeant at Arms will take me out also, because this is ridiculous. We've heard the same thing 3 days in a row. They did it when we were talking about the amendments, and so they haven't proven anything other than the fact that they can talk for a long time, and just had different people say the same thing. How many times can we hear Sondland talk about the same, just say the same thing? And think about this. I was thinking this through when you're down there so long. Why did Nancy Pelosi wait for 33 days? I think it was clearly to help Joe Biden. I don't think there's any question. It was all to help Joe Biden. And you have to sit there and think. Well, wait. So what they do? They sat out there and tried to defend Joe Biden yesterday. And Joe Biden, with his sons on Burisma's board, he goes and gets rid of a prosecutor that's going to prosecute Burisma. So this was all. I think that whole time frame to wait was to help Joe Biden. And think about what Bernie Sanders, Warren, and Elizabeth Warren are thinking there. They just have to sit there. They have to listen to a defense of Joe Biden and the guy that they're running against in the Iowa caucuses. It's all the established. It's all the establishment trying to help Joe Biden. It's the craziest thing. So think about it. They say that Joe Biden, it's okay for him to get rid of a prosecutor, but for a president to get rid of a ambassador he has a right to do is somehow sinister.
Do you have ongoing concerns about corruption in Ukraine?
Well, you learn more about it. I've been up here a year, and you learn more about this all the time. But what everybody says, it's a very complex place. There's a lot of corruption going on. So
why release the aid?
Say again?
Why release the aid?
Well, we're learning more about that. It'll be interesting to see when the president's team gives their rebuttal tomorrow. We got another day of listened to Schiff just say the same thing again. So we'll find out in the next few days what the president's plan was.
So did something change to convince President Trump of the need to release the aid?
Well, we're going to find out.
If the conditions in Ukraine didn't change, then why would he release the aid now?
We're going to find out.
Senator, if you don't want to hear the same thing over and over again, you guys could subpoena new witnesses and documents as the House managers have requested.
Sure. We're going to have a fair trial, but remember, this is the House's decision. They decide they're the ones that could have subpoenaed John Bolton. They're the ones that decide not to subpoena John Bolton. They're the ones that rush this through and then put it on our lap. In a very partisan manner. So it was their job to prove their case. I'm listening to their case. In my case, they surely haven't proved it. Maybe there'll be something new today.
But does that absolve the Senate of that choice? I mean, you have John Bolton who said he's willing to testify before the Senate. He wouldn't do it before the House. I mean, just because the House didn't get him, does that absolve you in the Senate of that choice of whether to call him?
We're going through a logical process. We're doing the same thing we did with Clinton. We're going to make a decision about witnesses once we hear both sides and we get to ask our questions.
Senator, do you think the president obstructed Congress?
Say again?
Do you think the president obstructed Congress?
Well, I'm going to continue. I'm going to make a decision whenever we get both sides present their case and we get to ask our questions, and then we'll just see where we go from there. And then we'll have closing arguments, I guess.
When you have the chance to ask questions, do you have any questions that you plan to ask specifically?
Well, I've written down a bunch of questions. I'll decide if I'm going to ask what I'm going to ask. I can't imagine, right now. I assume I'll ask some questions, but I think what will happen is a lot of people ask questions and they'll put them together, and we have 16 hours. So.
Senator, any reaction to the
Thanks,
tape
everybody.
of President Donald Trump?
Thank you so much.
Just the way to the